Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of the Media Row podcast. I'm your host, Justin Miller. As always, these shows are brought to you by Stevens Automotive and Sales and Kelly's Little Nipper. Kelly's Little Nipper over there at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Make sure to get over there. You're going to find great food, great drinks, and even better community over there at 1701. And when you go there, make sure you utilize the greatest deal in this state right now. Use the keyword that you hear on this show in Woodley. Yes, as in our guest for Wednesday's show, Coach Joe Woodley. And your first drink is on the house. Again, for people who listen each and every show, this is how I start off every show with this Little Nipper live read. And I don't know what else to tell you guys. This is the greatest deal. And if you're going there on Wednesday for trivia night, utilize it. If you're going over the weekend for watch parties or for live and local music, utilize it. Use the keyword Woodley, get your first drink on the house, and make sure to let them know Media Row sent you when you go check out Kelly's Little Nipper over there at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Well, did this past weekend of college football live up to your hype? It certainly did with me. What an amazing weekend of college football. Absolutely lived up to the hype. This was the weekend we had circled all year long. This was the weekend, if you were with us during the preseason when we were breaking down the best weekend for college football, this was number one because you also had the Ryder Cup, which not pretty for USA, but it lived up to the hype. It was the best. It was absolutely amazing. It started off great on Friday. If you followed us on social media, which if you haven't, make sure to go check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Like, subscribe, rate. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And then follow us all over social media. Over the weekends, we're not posting clips from the show, but we are definitely giving our insight to all the games, all the action, all weekend long. So if you want kind of that back and forth comment, all that good stuff on Twitter, make sure to follow us at Media Row Pod. But it started off great on Friday. We put out on Friday how if this Florida State-Virginia game is just an appetizer to what the main course is on Saturday, sign me up. Because that Florida State-Virginia game was incredible. We could have spent notes on that game itself, which fastest field storm I think I've ever witnessed in my life. Hopefully that defender and the Florida State receiver made it out alive. Everyone was joking about how that student section and the fans just absolutely just swallow up those two players in the end zone. But an amazing atmosphere Friday night. And then I was about to go to bed. I was like, well, you have Arizona State and TCU. I'll stay up for a little bit of that game. That turned into a classic Friday night. That one goes down to the wire. So then Saturday, you have USC and Illinois, which was a back and forth fun game where Illinois scores and gets the game-winning field goal in the final 40 seconds. They march up the field against a beat-up USC defense and a secondary. Their main safety was out of that game. I think that was a crucial point for USC, why they didn't come out on top. And it just starts off this weekend with a bang. And you had great games in this state. You had an amazing atmosphere in the night games with Alabama, Georgia, as well as Oregon, Penn State. But just an incredible weekend of college football. Can't wait to break it down today. We're going to go through, of course, the local games and then hit on some of the main national topics through this weekend. Let's start with Iowa and Indiana. This is back-to-back weeks where Iowa has surprised me with entertaining football games. Against Rutgers, that was a great game last Friday. And then against Indiana, when my phone goes off in the first 2 minutes of the game, after Iowa starts the game with an interception, and Indiana takes advantage and scores the touchdown, I don't feel hopeful. But that game turned out to be an amazing game. It had all the makings for a classic Kinnick upset, didn't it? I mean, we talked about it on Friday's show. We picked Indiana to win, but we said we wouldn't be surprised just with the crowd itself. Kinnick's one of the few stadiums in this nation that no matter how bad Iowa may look week to week, you still have confidence whenever a road-ranked, highly touted team comes into Iowa City just because of the effect the fans have on a game. And ugly game. The teams combined 12 of 31 on third downs. It started with an interception, late turnovers. It was 10-10 at the half, which in my opinion, that's a win for Iowa right there. But this is what Iowa needed. Iowa needed this game to be ugly to come out on top. Now, a few things led them to not come out on top, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But throughout this game, Iowa was right there. Illinois, a top 10 team when they faced Indiana a week ago, got boat raced. 63 points put up on them. Iowa 10-10 at the half, that's a win. And then in the third quarter, I'm sitting there going, this is what Iowa wants. Iowa is winning this game right now because the entire third quarter, each team had 2 possessions each, 4 total punts. That is Iowa football. Iowa fans are sitting there seeing 4 punts on 4 drives by each team. That's a win. Then with the secondary that isn't as strong as it usually is under Phil Parker, with an offense that still continues to struggle from time to time, this is a win for Iowa. But then in the fourth quarter, just crucial errors lead to Indiana taking down Iowa. And it starts off with just missed tackles. Mendoza hits Sarart for a 49-yard touchdown. A easy just slant pattern. It wasn't a 49-yard bomb. It was probably like an 8-10-yard pass. And the corner for Iowa just completely misses the tackle. Sarart gets through, has an opening, and just puts on the Jets. And then before that, Iowa has an opportunity to take the lead in the game, and you have Drew Stevens missing another field goal, a go-ahead field goal late in the game. Drew Stevens, something just isn't clicking these past few weeks. Something just is a little off. This guy is a very talented kicker. I think a lot of Hawkeye fans, when you saw that interception by Mendoza, now we'll get to the importance of the Gronowski injury, but even with Hank Brown under center, you were sitting there watching the game saying, Iowa's going to win this. This is going to be a Kinnick Classic. They are going to upset number 11 Indiana, hold them to only 10 points, or at that point I think they had 13. Hold them to 13 points after they put up 63 against a top 10 team a week ago. This is Iowa football. And yet Drew Stevens misses the go-ahead field goal. He has now missed a field goal in 3 straight games. Just something off that we're not used to. Drew Stevens is a very talented kicker. But just crucial errors like that, where you can't take advantage of an interception late in the game, you miss the field goal, and then you miss a tackle. Iowa, with 1:14 left, had 3 timeouts. But when you have your backup quarterback in, your wide receiver 1 is not there as well. I mean, most teams with 3 timeouts, 1:14, you feel like that's plenty of time to get down the field. For Iowa, I think a lot of people right there were sitting and thinking that was game. And that may have been me included. And that brings us to just the Gronowski injury and the importance of that injury. Gronowski looked comfortable again in the pocket. He's shown improvement throwing in this offense. Still, I don't understand. He can put dots deep downfield, and sometimes it's dropped by the receiver, but he's been throwing well deep downfield. But then it seems like 8 yards in, it's all over the place. A few passes again against Indiana that hit the ground well before a wide open receiver. And I don't understand what that is. of if he's just rushing himself, but it's weird that he can dot up receivers deep downfield, but then 8 yards in, he's still coming up short. The rushing yards weren't as impressive as you usually are used to seeing. Only 7 yards rushing, 1 touchdown, and then he threw 19 of 25, 144 yards, 1 interception. And Hawkeye fans, after he gets banged up, did not return to the game. Hank Brown takes over late in the game. You have to feel that if Gronkowski was in, instead of Hank Brown in that final drive where Iowa got the interception and had an opportunity to take the lead, you're taking off more time with the legs of Gronkowski and you're getting in a better field position for Drew Stevens. Now, Drew Stevens should still make that field goal. But looking at this game, you have to feel as a Hawkeye fan, if your quarterback one is healthy, you're coming out with that victory. And that's all you can ask for with your quarterback is, man, give us an opportunity to win. And I think Gronkowski would have for Iowa, and that's all they're asking for at this point. Hank Brown, you want to see a guy get an opportunity, but never in a situation like that. Kind of felt bad for Hank Brown getting put in late in that game. 5 of 13, 48 yards, and interception, which ended the game. But overall, I don't think anyone is that upset. Sure, you're upset you lost. You want to win that game. But think about this. Iowa, for the way we've talked about the defense kind of taking a step back, especially in the secondary, the way the offense just hasn't had really a flow, even with the running backs. When I watch Iowa, even the running backs haven't impressed me like they have in years past. But lost in a game-winning field goal by Iowa State. That was a top 15 team. And then you lose to number 11 Indiana, 20-15. In a really ugly game, a game where you were in it, had an opportunity to take the lead late. You were in these games against top 10, top 15 opponents. And that's all you can ask for. And sure, you want to start winning these games, but I truly believe Iowa wins that game if Gronkowski's in. You're able to take off more time off the clock. Maybe you're able to center that ball better for Drew Stevens. Iowa put themselves in a position to win. And I think that's all fans wanted. If I was going to tell Hawkeye fans, you are going to be in one possession games against Iowa State and an Indiana squad that just put up 63 against a top 10 team a week ago, I think a lot of Hawkeye fans are taking that. So both Iowa and Indiana have bye weeks coming up. Iowa bye week and then take on Wisconsin on October 11th. Indiana a bye week and then huge game on the road against Oregon on October 11th. That should be a fun one. So really excited for that weekend, but Iowa right there in those games can't be too upset with just falling short, 5 points separating you and a team that put up 63 a week ago. Moving on to number 14, Iowa State in Ames in a sold-out, wide-out crowd cruises past Arizona. I mean, just this game never looked in question. Cyclones 4-0 for the first time, drum roll, since 2024. If you're a Cyclone fan, what a great time to be a Cyclone fan. I know we've had John Walters on the show a bunch of times, Tommy Birch on the show a bunch of times, Travis Hines on the show who covers Iowa State. And all those guys, we've talked about how if you're an Iowa State fan, this is the absolute best time to be a Cyclone fan. They went 7-0 a year ago, won a huge bowl game against Miami a year ago. Don't miss a beat this year and start off 4-0 for the second straight year. In basketball, you have so much hype around your team. In women's basketball, you have hype around your team. Just what an awesome time to be an Iowa State Cyclone. but 4-0 for the first time since last year, back-to-back seasons. And they just made playing college football look easy. Arizona is a 3-0 team going into Saturday night. Arizona has a strong defense in the Big 12. We talked about how we thought Iowa State would win that game, but Arizona is quietly sitting there in the Big 12 looking to make a jump. And Iowa State, credit to Mauser. I thought he called a wonderful game. Thought, he got aggressive, but didn't get outside of their own zone. They knew who Iowa State was. I thought that was an issue 2 weeks ago against Arkansas State. If you've been listening to the show, I mentioned that. And Mauser came out and just put the ball where it needed to be. Handed it off to Hansen way more. And Rocco continued to do what Rocco does best, and that's just place the ball in perfect positions to let his wide receivers make a play. They made it look easy. 5 touchdowns on 8 drives through the third quarter. Video game type stats. Now, talking about stat lines, see Rocco Bex? What a weird stat line. I don't think I've ever seen a stat line look like this. Passing, not bad. 14 of 20, 243, 1 interception, no touchdowns. Had an opportunity early on in the game to get a touchdown, but was just an inch short. But his rushing yards, just his rushing stats in general, very odd. 9 rushes, negative 10 yards, 3 touchdowns. I haven't seen anything like that before. It was incredible. And Rocco played great. The 1 interception, he does not turn over the ball a lot. You're bound to have interceptions. Arizona is a good defensive team. It wasn't a terrible throw. It's whatever. Put it in the past, nothing to be concerned about. His passing is still elite. And then those rushing stats just blew me out of the park. But 3 rushing touchdowns for Rocco Beck. With this game, with them winning 39-14, improving to 4-0, as this game's moving on, I always sit while I'm watching these games, and I'm either putting notes down on my notebook or in my notes app on my phone, or just looking back at what I tweet to prepare for these shows. And as I'm watching this game, I'm kind of sitting there going, man, what do we talk about with Iowa State? It may be like a 2-minute segment. Then those injuries started popping up. I don't know really the answer why the starters were in so late, but that is the number one concern coming from this game. Is why were the starters in so late in this game where it felt, 8 minutes left in the third quarter, this game was sealed. Rocco had got put in the concussion tent. He looked fine. Seems like he'll be fine. So catch a huge break there. If you see Rocco get banged up, that could be your season. But Rocco seems fine. Then your best defensive lineman, where the defensive line has been good for Iowa State, but it's really because of one guy just absolutely dominating, and that's Dom Orange. Seemed like he injured his arm late in the game. Don't know his update. Then you had 3 defensive backs get banged up. Jontez Williams seemed fine, but he got banged up late in the game. And this is all on top of before the game even got started, you lose one of your best secondary players in Jeremiah Cooper for the season. Jeremiah Cooper done for the season, going to have knee surgery today. So that is what everyone was talking about in this game. It wasn't the 4-0 start. It wasn't just cruising past a good defensive team in Arizona. It was, why was Iowa State leaving those starters in? And Campbell said in his press conference Saturday night that seemed like everyone was fine. If he needed everyone to play everyone would have been able to play, of course, with the exception of Jeremiah Cooper. But you don't need to put yourself in those situations. Let's see what those backups got. Let's grow some depth. But keeping Rocco in as late as he did, Dom Orange, Jontez Williams, very, very concerning leaving the game. Hopefully, and it seems this way, everyone will be fine moving forward. And just really do feel for Jeremiah Cooper. But it does sound like he'll get a medical red shirt year added on. So hopefully we'll see him back in the Cardinal and Gold next season. So Iowa State, they improved to 4-0 with a 39-14 victory. Next weekend, a really tricky game. Iowa State's schedule is just odd. I mean, their travels are really tough this year. So they get a bye week, which was huge. But then they have a home game against a undefeated opponent, conference opponent. Then you have to go on the road against a really tricky Cincinnati team. And Vegas even sees the trickiness and how this game could be fairly close next week. Iowa State opens up today as a 2-point favorite on the road at an 11 a.m. kickoff versus Cincinnati next weekend. Now let's get into the national headlines. And one, our picks were bad. 500, but I gotta be better. I gotta be better for you guys. 3-3 in our extra games that we picked. We did good for the most part in the early slate, but man, the Bama-Georgia game got us. That LSU game got us. And then, of course, we had USC, which looked really good late, and then that defense just could not afford a stop. But I want to start here in the national headlines as a couple of home streaks that have been incredible for a long time, these home field advantages, come to an end on Saturday night. You have Bama upsetting Georgia 24-21. That ends a Georgia Bulldogs 33-game home winning streak, which was first in college football. And then you have Ohio State, the number one team, which looked rough coming out of the gates. That secondary for Ohio State looked very easy to pass on. Outside of Aiden Curry, really that defense was tough to watch for Ohio State, but that offense slowly figured out that when they passed to, some of the best wide receivers in the game, including the best wide receiver in the game, in my opinion, Jeremiah Smith, good things happen. So they made some adjustments. Take down Washington on the road, 24-6. That ends the second longest home streak in college football, as the Huskies had a 22-game home winning streak. That now puts the Oregon Ducks as the number one current home winning streak with 18 now for college football. And I want to talk about this Bama game more in depth. So Bama wins, upsets Georgia 24-21, and a great game. Bama came out of the gates, and this is where I'm starting here, is I don't think even in the Nick Saban era, I don't think I've ever seen a Bama team, a team in general, come into Georgia and just control the game on all fronts. I mean, it was for the full 60 minutes. Sure, Georgia had its moments where they started to mount a comeback, made the game a one-possession game, but it never rattled Bama, and it never made it look like Alabama had their back against the wall. Never looked uncomfortable. I've never seen that in Georgia Stadium. The stats that stand out are time of possession, third down, and then just total first downs. Starting with time of possession, Bama, 35 minutes, 36 seconds on the field. Georgia, 24 minutes. Bama on third down, 13 of 19, Georgia only 2 of 8. And then total first downs, Bama 25 total, Georgia 17. And it was that way the whole game. I mean, Alabama went up 14-0 right out of the gates. Just looked in control. But even watching the game, I'm saying to myself, look at that Tennessee game. We know it's Kirby Smart still coaching. He's going to make adjustments. They could go down 17-0, and I still feel confident in Kirby Smart. Wasn't saying to go down 17-0. They were down 17-7 at a point. And that defense just could not stop Bama. Ty Simpson has a breakout game with 24 of 38 passing, 276 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, played flawless, near flawless. And now for either team, or for Georgia, I should say, losing this game isn't the end of the year. Bama, on the other hand, this felt like you needed to win this one. After losing to Florida State, this felt like you needed this to right the ship and to get your name right back into those conversations for not only the SEC title, but the whole damn thing in the college football playoff title. Huge win for Kalen DeBoer. Team played so well on the road, and what was the toughest place to play on the road. And I still have faith in Kirby Smart, still have faith in this Georgia team. I think they'll be just fine. Wouldn't be shocked if we just see a rematch here late in the year in the SEC title game, because Texas really hasn't impressed me. It'll be interesting to see what happens as the year progresses with Ole Miss and with Vanderbilt, because Vanderbilt plays Bama next week in what will be a really test game. Bama got upset against Vanderbilt a season ago. Vanderbilt hasn't taken their foot off the pedal. They're still undefeated going into next weekend's game. So I think we're going to learn where Vandy sits actually among the top teams in the SEC. Are they actually for real now, or is it just a fluke? We'll see next weekend. But absolutely amazing game as Bama upsets Georgia 24-21. And those 2 home winning streaks come to an end. Now to finish up today's show, let's talk about the game of the weekend. Bama, Georgia was real close. Bama, Georgia was right there. But, I mean, when I leave the double box to just watch a singular game, when there's a tight game in Bama, Georgia going on, you know something special is happening. And yes, I'm talking about number 6 Oregon upsetting number 3 Penn State in a whiteout, sold-out crowd, an amazing atmosphere at Penn State, 30-24 in a double overtime thriller. Instant classic. Can we just take a moment to just appreciate what we saw on Saturday in terms of just this weekend? Friday, a overtime thriller to start this best weekend of college football off. Then you have a great back and forth game early on with USC and with Illinois. Then at 2:30, the local teams perform well. And you had a great game in Iowa City. You had Iowa State just control the game. You had Ohio State with Washington look close. And then to cap it off, Oregon and Penn State doesn't disappoint. Instant classic. Combined 8 of 10 on 4th downs. That's always a great sign. As a football fan, if you're seeing 2 teams go for it on 4th down, one, early on in the first quarter, but 10 times throughout the entire game, that's a sign of a great game, because that shows that both coaches understand the importance of this game. Both coaches just know that every inch matters in this game. Every possession matters in this game. And it didn't start off great. It did not. 3-3 at half. Just kind of an ugly game. Oregon looked really good offensively. Felt like they were marching up the field really easily, or more efficiently. I shouldn't say easily, because when it got to 4th down, they would get it or they'd come up short. Just very inconsistent on 4th down early on, and just couldn't get themselves within scoring position. Missed a field goal late in the first half. But then the second half, Oregon changes it around. Just starts being able to play like how we thought Oregon would play. Quick passes to tight ends and wide receivers from Dante Moore, and great use in the running backs in both the passing game and the backfield. Ducks led 17-3 to start the 4th quarter, and had completely taken out that Nittany Lion crowd. Then Penn State, as we saw in the third quarter, Oregon do what they do best. Penn State went back to what they do best, and that's just getting physical with that front offensive lineman and with their running backs. And they just started to stack together long, sustaining drives that just beat up and bruised this Oregon defense. And all of a sudden, you're seeing an Oregon defense that had played so well and so tight start getting loose and slow and sluggish and beat up as Penn State continues to just put together these long scoring drives, and they tie it up 17-7 in a blink of an eye. On the final drive of regulation, where you're seeing Oregon guys standing with hands on their heads or leaning over, Penn State, 62 yards, a 6.5-minute drive, nearly a 6:40 drive, 16 runs, only 3 throws. I mean, that is how you tire out a defensive line and just a defense in general. But you go into overtime, and Oregon wins the toss. They put out their defense out there, and you're kind of sitting there going, man, this defense has been out on the field for over 15 straight minutes, it feels like. And Penn State scores quickly again. The Ducks offense responds. And that wasn't only huge for just, all right, you're staying alive in this game, but watching that, I was watching it with a few family and friends, and I even said out loud where that's huge because now your defense not only had a break while your offense is trying to tie this game up, your defense has a break while the offense is out there trying to win this thing, take the lead. So they get basically 2 possessions off. And that ends up being the game changer because the Ducks defense responds and intercepts Drew Aller with a game-ending pick. And Oregon escapes Penn State 30-24 in double overtime. Instant classic, an amazing game, an amazing post-game interview with Dan Lanning, who he looked like he was on something. Just that adrenaline high, I guess. But very cool sight to see. An amazing game. If either one of these teams, very similar to Bama and Georgia, either one loses, they're not necessarily out of the conversation. For Oregon, they have plenty of opportunities. Penn State, though, just for that narrative, which we're going to get to here in a few minutes, you really wanted to win that game. You, in a sense, it felt like you needed to win that game because it's not going to get easier if you're Penn State. And that brings me to my next topic. If you're Penn State, what do you do with James Franklin? You're going to hear this narrative all week long now. It's going to be the storyline for Penn State moving forward. James Franklin versus top 10 teams, 4-21. We know the stats. 1-15 versus top 5, 15-30 versus top 25, 4-17 versus teams named Michigan and Ohio State. Since 2016, the only 2 top 10 wins he has are over Utah in the Rose Bowl, which Cam Rising, their best quarterback, was injured, and then Boise last year, Boise State in the college football playoffs, which was a good team. But like we'd mentioned last week in our show, Penn State didn't beat anyone, didn't beat any of the top teams, and when they got to the college football playoff, got handed a silver platter of the easiest route. And so what do you do about James Franklin if you're a Penn State fan, if you're the Penn State program? He signed a 10-year contract extension in November of 2021. In 2025, his estimated buyout is $56 million. Pros, you look at James Franklin, your team is always in the top 10, always in the conversation. They're playing these top 10 teams close. You made it to the college football playoffs a year ago. You were 4 points away from playing in the national title game, but you just can't get over the hump. You look at the cons. Penn State going into the season, was the highest rated Big Ten school in week 1. It wasn't Ohio State. It was Penn State. AP week 1, they were ranked second. They were the second favorite to win the Big Ten at plus 240. Yet they just can't get over the hump. They have a lot to figure out in the next few weeks. Easy games against UCLA and Northwestern. But then at Iowa, we know what Kinnick can do to top teams. At Ohio State, and then versus Indiana. Better figure it out. And if they lose to Ohio State and Indiana, what do you do about James Franklin? It's really interesting. I did appreciate how James Franklin took accountability, said he understands the narrative. It's not even a narrative, it's facts. And that's a quote by James Franklin. So I appreciate him taking responsibility. But with that responsibility, when do you get to the point as a Penn State program that you go, hey, with our resources, with our home field advantage, we should never even come close to being 4-21 versus top 10 teams. It'll be an interesting conversation. You're going to hear all week long. Not only on this show, you're going to hear it everywhere. ESPN, whatever podcasts you also listen to on top of this show. You're going to hear it everywhere. Thank you again so much for tuning in to today's show. Make sure to follow us, like, subscribe, comment on all social media, as well as wherever you get podcasts on YouTube as well. It takes you 2 seconds to click a button, and it means the world to us over here at Media Row. After you're done liking, subscribing, all that, make sure to get over to 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa to go check out Stevens Automotive and Sales. 35 years of family owned and operated here in the state. Wonderful people. They know what's best for your car 2 seconds as you walk in, and they are wonderful. I mean it. They're like family at this point for everyone in my family, as we have only trusted Stevens Automotive and Sales, 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. 35 years of family owned and operated here in the state. Make sure to go check them out. And when you do, let them know Media Row sent you. That'll do it for today's show. Make sure to tune in on Wednesday as we bring back Coach Woodley, the head football coach for the Drake Bulldogs, as they're finally back home, bringing Pioneer Football League back to Des Moines as they take on Valpo. So we'll make sure to break down that game, get a few injury updates as well, and just have some fun with Coach Woodley on Wednesday. And then Friday, our picks and previews for this weekend. Make sure to tune in. We will see you guys on Wednesday for the Media Row podcast.